Good morning to you on this third day of March. Petrol prices will be dropping this week, and we are 3 days into or after payday. So take note, some encouraging signs and relief for some. If you've joined us, you're on the fifth connection, and this morning we are continuing in part 2 of the unfolding story in the book of Hebrews chapter 7. And we are looking at verse number 20 to 25. It's part of a very long section because this cryptic king is on the scene, Melchizedek, and Jesus is one, a high priest, after the order of Melchizedek. And in the last time that we were together, we looked at why change can be so intimidating, why newness can rattle our cage more gently than we'd like. But in order to go with what God is doing, we need to understand something very simple, something very emphatic. And that's what comes up in verse 20 to 25, because the writer is telling the story from the vantage point of one who has observed that these Christian Hebrews stand in danger of defecting to the old way, grabbing onto what is tried, true, and trusted, and not stepping out in faith and staying with believing who Jesus is. That was a big one for Christian Hebrews. And we looked at in our own lives why some change in our lives can be very destabilizing. And I challenged us to look at what the debilitators were in moving from the old to the new. And what were some of the facilitators that helped with it in terms of moving from the old to the new and staying with the new, which is better than the old. I grew up in an outfit that had a very simple line, and it is quite devastating when you think this through. The line went something like this: if it's old, it's gold. If it's new, it's not true. If it's old, it's gold. If it's new, it's not true. Now, that can be quite devastating because it is postulating that anything that is new is a lie. And yet we know what newness and freshness does to us. Those of us who are on the bright side of 60. Some of us are on the brighter side, or maybe the brightest side of 65. And for us, it is a wonderful thing to be given to qualitative change because we are progressing. We are not just getting older. I would venture to say getting better and doing better than we did yesterday, because we are embracing more and more who we are in Christ and freeing ourselves up from egoic attachments to that which debilitates. It's called the flesh. These fleshly ties we have. We have ties to our family. That's important. But don't become egoically attached to that, where it becomes a debilitator. These attachments allow us to connect with our culture. It helps us to connect with life and living and to make qualitative contributions into others' lives. But don't become egoically attached to it. When your ego, when your flesh gets tied down to it, because all the hatches are battened down and we become purely black and white, this reg of weg, we need to be careful. And so the writer is going to continue to encourage these believers to move on. Because he says there are a couple of things you need to keep in mind in verse 20 of chapter 7. If Jesus is the superordinate son, he's not a subby, he's not a subordinate, he's the superordinate one who is the son. He's got a superordinate walk because of his work and worth, from 1 verse 5 to 10 verse 18 of Hebrews, and then 10 verse 19 all the way through to the end of chapter 13. He is the superordinate walk. He's the superordinate way, rather. And so there are three reminders here. The reason we can hold on to what is new is because the new is more efficient than the old. The new order is backed by an oath, and God is the one who swears the oath. In Genesis 15, Abram falls asleep, and God moves between the pieces of that sacrifice. He's the party of the first party, and God is the party of the second party. He swears by himself in terms of what he had promised to Abram, that it will come true and will come through. It says, and it is not without an oath, for those who formerly became priests, in verse 20, were made such without an oath. But this one was made a priest with an oath by the one who said to him, and the scriptures quotes Psalm 110, the Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever. Psalm 110 verse number 4. God swears that he will not change his mind. He tells the truth. He doesn't lie. And of Jesus, he says, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Remember this priest, Melchizedek, king of Salem, king of peace, king of righteousness, who appears on the scene in Genesis chapter 14. He's the cryptic king, and Jesus follows in that order. Melchizedek is without lineage. He doesn't come from a priestly line. God introduces him to show that the priesthood of Christ, again, is a priesthood forever. And this is the amazing thing. There is loyalty here because God swears by himself. He backs his promise. The two things that he cannot go against is the promise that he's made and the oath that he's sworn to Abram, made to Abram. There's loyalty here. This makes Jesus, verse 22, the guarantor of a better covenant. Remember, it's better than the old covenant, the Mosaic covenant between God and Israel, mediated by Moses, mediated by angels. God is better than Torah. So Jesus is the guarantor of a better covenant because this covenant is based upon better promises and a better priesthood. Verse 23, the former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office. But he, that's Jesus, holds his priesthood permanently because he continues for a short time? No. Forever. It again shows the permanency of his priesthood. It's backed by the loyalty of God because of the promise and the oath that was sworn. God swore that. God made that promise to Abram. There's permanency because as a priest, Jesus continues as a high priest, as a priest forever. And then the third thing you need to take note of in verse 25 is this issue of proximity. We have closeness. These Christian Hebrews have closeness. They are in the proximal zone, as we call it. Close to you, that commercial song by the Carpenters says. Consequently, God is able to save to the uttermost. We normally say God saves from the guttermost to the uttermost because his grace can touch anybody's life. Anybody as in A-N-Y, anybody, not just for a select few. He's able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God through Christ, through him. Draw near to me and I will draw near to you. There's something about proximity, being in the proximal zone, being close. We want to be close to our loved ones, close to those with whom we share, close to those we love, those who draw near to God through Christ, through him. Since he always lives, again, there's the idea, forever. He always lives to make intercession for those who draw near to God. These promises are backed by God's loyalty to what he has sworn and promised. By the permanency of the priesthood of Christ, he ever lives to make intercession for us. And we have closeness. Oh, the closeness. The never-failing presence of God is such a consoling thing. And for these Christian Hebrews who were standing in danger of falling away, in danger of defecting, but the writer says, I expect better things of you, things that become salvation. He doesn't say they have defected, but they are quite close, coming almost near to being cursed. Not cursed, coming close to being accursed. And so the writer is doing everything in his power to encourage the saints because of God's loyalty, because of the priesthood's permanency, and because of the privilege of proximity, of closeness. Why is it that things that are new and exciting can come across to us as something that is enticing? Because of its freshness. I also understand that as we grow older, change becomes a more difficult thing for us. Because we have 50 and 60 plus years of doing things in a particular way. And to change routine. You know how hard it is to change your eating pattern as you get older because somehow the tummy can't process that quickly anymore, that efficiently anymore. So you have to watch what you eat, watch your diet, and watch your anger level of how you respond when there's that constant watching of what you eat. It's not only what you eat, but it's also what eats you. Some of us are getting eaten alive by life. Why is newness so unnerving? Because you see, it challenges us to change and to move in the flow of reality. The ebb and the flow of life is what is challenging. And so we'd like life to be more predictable because we don't like change. But I have to say to you, there's something that's fresh about change. Because why is it that if you've heard somebody once, you've heard them a million times, they come across like records that have gotten hooked? You know the old LP, long playing records? They've gotten hooked. They're playing the same old tune. and there's no freshness to their life. Well, how about you? How do you reinvent yourself in the light of moving from that which is old and stale to that which is new? Both Jackie and I, over a window of 8 months, have moved geographically 3 times. 3 geographic moves with all our wherewithal. Now, that's not easy. Those of you who have moved know a one time move in your life can rock your world and blow your socks off. Well, until the day we drop, we're going to be challenged. We're going to be challenged to change. Change for the better, not just change because of change, but to change because I want to hold on and I want to have a better bargaining chip with the future. How do I do that? I learn to negotiate every step of the way. I learn to navigate life with great excitement. But you see, some of us have lost that sense of adventure, that sense of challenge. And we woke up this Monday morning with not saying good morning, God, but good God, it's morning. I trust that as you look to the newness that life will bring, the fresh wind that will blow into your life this morning will be accepted in the spirit of adventure, because it's not the time for giving up. It's too late to quit. Most of us have come a longer way than many, and some are reaching for the bench. And oh, the walking stick is our helper and our friend, and the walkers become our helper and our friend. But how about looking up and saying, Lord, bring it on. Uh, let life throw what it will. I will trust you in spite of. I won't go back. I won't defect. I trust this has been an encouragement to you today as you look at going with God on this Monday morning. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.